Hello. I woke up not too long ago, so my voice may be still a little bit froggy. Frogs actually have been coming up a lot lately, so that could be a sign for someone. Yeah, I actually really wanted to sort of just flow with this because lately I've been kind of maybe getting in my head a little bit about next steps, what I want to be focusing on, what I want to be sharing. And when I first started recording my voice, I would record on my phone. I think I started in 2021, and I didn't start posting until I think March or April or May of this year. And I really just loved tuning in and just recording whatever was coming through in that moment. Of course, when I say that moment, it's sort of like, whatever wants to come through, whether it's like a dream that I had to share and interpret, something that I had researched. There's different aspects that will kind of weave through when I do that. Yesterday, for the first time in a while, actually, I just got to do this practice. I just call it flow key or flow chi. I've been doing it for off and on for years now, where I just sort of put on usually some sort of Kundalini meditation music, but it's not always Kundalini. And kind of like when people do Tai Chi. Similar, but it's more a feminine flow where I just let my body I usually have my eyes closed and I just move my body in any way that feels good to me. Sometimes that includes certain poses, but it's never planned. It's just whatever feels good. And as I was doing that, I felt just like a clearing. My body had been feeling sore the last few days, almost like I worked out, but I hadn't worked out. So there may be some people in the collective feeling that way, almost achy and sore a bit. Especially my hands, my wrists, the top of my neck, my spine, really. Yeah. And I was actually really cold before I started, and I wanted to just warm up my body. The room I was going to shower in was really cold too, so I just wanted to be warm before I got into the shower. And it really helped. Okay, so when I was flow keying or flow chiing, if you're not familiar, ki, I believe, is the Japanese word for life force, QI, and then chi is the Chinese word, CHI. I usually call it flow ki, though. I always spell it flow QI. Okay, so there were a few things I wrote down when I was finished, and I'm just going to read them without any, I'll interpret as I go. Flow ki, unicorn, Shekinah, first ray of light, ancient, cosmic, crystalline, rainbows, Keelan's, feminine, ecstasy, expression, feeling, and Lilith. And Lilith is often depicted as, if you're not familiar, the darker aspect of the feminine. And I don't mean to go into this, feminine versus masculine at all. Because I know that goes sort of into the into the opposite of non-duality. It's more, for me, these different aspects that might come through, either that want to be expressed or need attention, in some way, or, whether for individually, collectively, etc. Your Lilith placement in astrology could be helpful to, if you're not already familiar, to familiarize yourself with. Interestingly, my Lilith in tropical astrology is in Leo. And Leo, the Leo zodiac often can be depicted as being in the spotlight or being seen, being the center of attention kind of thing. I kept seeing in my mind's eye a unicorn horn, and a unicorn an outline of the body, but then it was also an emphasis on the horn. And I had realized afterwards that the last week or two, the references to horns kept coming up. And then what is it called? They call it the unicorn of the sea. A narwhal. I was feeling all these different horned beings, I suppose. Yeah, and what the horn could represent. Something about magic being in the air. I kept seeing ladybugs. I recorded that in my last transmission, but there was something about, really taking time to sit in my own space, especially if you live with people. Oh yeah, just not even talking about that for a little bit, and just maybe reconnecting with maybe how or why you started something. And my dreams were quite active last night. And, they call Shekinah the first ray of light in, I believe, in the Kabbalah type of practice, or in Jewish mysticism. And interestingly, Judaism has been coming up a lot. And I don't necessarily mean from a religious perspective at all. There's something about the race lines coming through, and some of Asha and Adine's work in Keylontic science. Yeah, there's just something about, how in a lot of the ascended masters or different beings that come through, they'll depict, or different cosmic lineages, it will be the blue ray, or the first ray, or the third ray, or the emerald ray. There's each one is a ray of the rainbow. And then there's the diamond sun DNA, or the double diamond sun DNA. And if you think about it, sometimes when you look into a diamond, you'll see an inclusion of a rainbow. So it's the diamond sun DNA is this amalgamation of all of the rays of creation reflected back in clarity, because, diamonds generally are known for their clarity. Of course, some of them are not, and that's a whole other interpretation of what I'm picking up on, is coming back into that more diamond sun DNA, or double diamond sun DNA, reflecting back these different rays of creation, essentially. Yeah, so interestingly, also there was an aspect coming through about excuse me, the Hathors. And in my dream last night, I was in a movie theater, but the movie theater was brighter than usual. Actually, I feel movie theaters are generally dark. And I wasn't actually watching the movie. I was sitting, I don't know if it was before the movie or after, but I was with my mom and then a few other people around her that I don't really know who they were. And someone was looking at this really big book. And I pointed out in the book, there were like multiple things popping out at me, and I was like, whoa, oh my God, like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And there were like these two cows depicted, and then above it said the Hathors. And, you know, for me, whenever I tune into the Hathors, I do get them represented as cows. They're coming through like the cow symbolism, and Hathor in Egyptian mythology is depicted with a cow head as like one of the ultimate mother archetypes. So there's something about this alchemization of the disconnection and feeling like worried about certain things, and sound, flow, and there's another aspect coming in. It's like sound, flow, feeling. So from my understanding of the Hathors, and I feel them often, and I feel like I've been connecting with that group for a long time, they tend to be depicted as very connected to sound healing, sacred geometry, temples of sound, and they're said to connect in through the Venusian headquarters of our solar system. But they're actually like here from another universe. This is getting a little bit, if you're into like the multiverse. They're depicted as essentially like an ascended civilization who are here to sort of assist with Earth's ascent back into the next, golden era in an organic ascension pulse, instead of like, utilizing external technology. They're more about, like, from what I understand and what I feel, really coming through the sound of the cosmos and the sound of our own inner rhythm, and how we can, like an instrument, fine-tune our own auric field, our own vessel, our own harmonics to the rhythm, the natural rhythm of the cosmos, and the natural rhythm of, when I say natural, I mean I'm seeing like a spiral, and you know how in nature they say everything is actually comes to a spiral. So it's like our our auric field, I talk about this quite often, becomes centripetally imploded. Dan Winter's work, he talks about how our auric field the way I'm being shown right now is like it moves in the energy of like a spiral. So it's like when that diamond sun and all the rays of creation are, of course, it's going to be uniquely expressed to each of us, because that's why I believe partly why we're here to, express ourselves as that like individual spark. But there's still, a greater weaving, a greater flow and connection back into the unity consciousness. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm being shown. And another, I've talked about this before as well, but the Hathors also tend to come to me like through breast milk or milk, really milk in general, but also breast milk. And it's funny because I talked about this as well recently, but I've really been craving like creamy things. Yeah. I know there's like a big Venus transit that started happening on the 17th of October. There's a comet passing through the sky. There's a lot of X-class solar flare. That was, I think, last week. I'm recording this in the third week of October. So there's definitely like this integration thing. We had a super full moon last night. I tried to see it from where I am, but the clouds were covering most of it. But I saw some photos. So there's definitely a lot of celestial activity right now, and these like waves and phases of integration and feeling like time is not as maybe long and linear as it was before. And by that I mean, for example, there may be part of the day where you just really feel like you need to be a caterpillar and cocoon. And maybe those stages before would be like 2 months where you felt that way. And now it might be like, oh, there's no way I could do anything later this day. And then all of a sudden you're like 3 hours later on an adventure zipping around like a butterfly and not expecting at all that was going to happen. So yeah, there just seems to be this like speeding up of phases all happening sort of simultaneously. Yeah, and I'm hearing words like respite, repair, regeneration. So there could be this call to, or you're already answering this call to really focus on like your emotional cues and emotional communication, and in terms of like really working with the nervous system. Yeah. Really focusing on, like just this nurturing aspect, nurturance, mirroring. There's Ayurvedic self-massage I used to do quite often. Now I sort of just integrate that a little bit with like lymphatic drainage, just self-practice. I used to spend a lot more time on it actually, and someone brought it up the other day and reminded me there's a proper name that I can never pronounce correctly in Ayurveda. It's like Avyonge or something. Let me look. Abhyanga. Warming up some oil of your choice that you like to work with. Massage oil. And for me, the most like important concept when I practiced this was to be in a surrounding where I felt, well, obviously if you're like massaging yourself with oil and no clothes, most likely you'll be private. But yeah, even just like I would make sure the lights were dimmed. You can light a candle if that makes you feel good, like whatever makes you feel relaxed. And the idea is to really like, I always like to start with the head. I don't remember what they say to do. Actually, I think you can look up these videos online. There's many processes, but I always like to start with the scalp and really work it in the scalp. And then, you work your way down, you don't forget your ears. It's like small circles all around your body, all the way to the bottom of your feet. So yeah, that could be, or maybe someone here is already doing that. And there's also it's funny, a lot of warmness is coming up now. I'm seeing like moon milk or warm milk with herbs, flowers, different combinations for that as well. Ayurvedic techniques with, like food, beverage, and understanding the body on a deeper level can definitely be helpful if you're not already participating in that. But I found personally when working with some of these things that I've really had to come at it from my own, like what works for me and my own perspective. Because if I tried to follow things in a certain way, I would kind of get frustrated and it wouldn't really sit with me and stick. So yeah, that may be for a few of you out there who maybe have a harder time just like following, word for word or verbatim or, like completely by a book of something. And if you are someone who's like that is also totally welcome and great. It's just, there's an expression my mom used to always say, I think, different strokes or different folks kind of thing. I am like really having a hard time speaking. I'm like stuttering over my words. So it's funny, the throat has been coming into play lately, self-expression, speaking up for yourself. I'm hearing something about a play, and then I heard do it anyway. So whenever I rhyme like that, I always feel like fae energy and dragons coming through. The rhyming doesn't usually associate with dragons for me, but I don't know why, I was just feeling that. I'm also seeing like a porcupine or a hedgehog. So maybe looking up the spirit animal to them. Yeah, there's also something about, maybe feeling a little bit messy if you've been holding back some sort of version of authenticity of yourself or version of yourself or something you wanted to say. I'm hearing do it anyway, even if it's a little bit stumbly or messy, when you're feeling, of course, please always trust yourself. Like when you're feeling, I was saying this the other day, like if you just feel, like you'll know when it's time. Again, back to that feeling center, like really trusting when you feel something. And not trying to force it either, but if you really feel ready and it still feels a little bit messy, it's perfect just the way it is and ready to be expressed. There's something about like the vulnerability and honesty of like maybe not looking 100% prepared, but feeling prepared, even if it doesn't look it, Spiders have been coming up a lot lately where I'm staying in like a place that would just generally have a lot of spiders and spider webs. It's quite on the older side. But the last few days, I feel like the spiders have really been getting my attention. There was a spider on... It was funny. I sat down with 4 other people to do a little meeting for the next retreat that's coming up. And the owner of the retreat center, his... I don't know if they call each other husband and wife or partner, but she's hosting a retreat this weekend, like a mother's retreat. It's really beautiful, the concept. And it was all about that, like, nurturing feminine, giving like the mother, the mother's like a rest and time for silence and introspection, practices like yin yoga. And it's really funny because to me, the spider archetype often depicts like the feminine, divine feminine energy, and the womb, creation, creativity, weaving, tantra is an aspect, the feminine aspect of weaving. So I meant to say tantra as it, is the word that translates to weaving. So I'm saying that Tantra is the weaving of the feminine and masculine. So the spider to me always depicts like that feminine aspect. And right when we went to start the meeting, someone made tea, and I brought cups or mugs for the tea to the table. And there was like this one mug that I had my eye on. I'm really funny with like glasses and mugs. I don't know, maybe you are too. I like specific ones. And I left the room to do something, and I came back and someone else took that mug, and I was like, all right, there was only one left. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll take this mug. So I took it, and the color was gray, by the way, in case gray has been coming up for anyone, or like silver and gray. And when I went to put the tea in the cup, there was a spider on the cup. And I just thought it was so one of those things, like we're about to sit down to do this like very feminine, like planning for this retreat that starts today, actually. And there's a spider on the cup. It just felt so like, I don't know, like a good omen. And the spider was brown. In case, I don't know, colors like brown and gray are coming through. It's funny because this week I'd felt very like, I don't know, like muted colors. So maybe there's something about that. So there was part of my dream where I mentioned my mom was in the dream and we were in a theater, and I looked up the theater interpretation. And it had a few different perspectives. It was like something about, escaping, like watching movies can be about like a form of escape, but depending like on the context of the dream, it could be like a more of a positive light or a negative light. But when I really sat with it, because the theater I was in was very like, it was kind of like a fancy theater, and there were there was kind of like this unusualness to the theater. Like, it didn't just feel like we were in like a regular movie theater watching a movie. I don't even know what movie we were there to see. I don't even remember the movie. It was more like everyone was like socializing, which is not something you usually do in a movie theater. And the word I kept getting was like co-creation. It's like more people are stepping into, instead of escaping. I mean, there was absolutely still many people escaping. But for this collective, it felt like those of us who are tuned in and like co-creating our existence here, and stepping into that leadership of taking more, like taking the reins in life. And it's kind of ironic because we really do, I feel like, live in that paradoxical way of, it's like sometimes taking the reins also means just like deeper surrender as well. So it can look a little maybe confusing from people who haven't quite stepped into that yet. So yeah, it's like really leading by example and just trusting, again, that feeling of trusting yourself, even when things can look a little illogical and it's not that logic doesn't have a place, of course. It's just, it's like right now a lot of people are concentrating on like rewiring their neural patterning and, rewiring different aspects of themselves to sort of transmute those, what we call like ancestral karmic patterns that have been just rolling through for quite a long time. I'm seeing like there's 2 black sheep on this property. I think I mentioned this before, but maybe just like feeling like a black sheep. But anyway, in the theater, my mom was sitting next to me, and she like left for a minute and went like up higher in the theater. This was like had multiple levels to it. And when she came back down, she shaved her head. There was like a little bit of hair left on like, like little strands that were still there, but it was like totally, and I was like, did you just go shave your head? Like, what happened? And she was like, oh yeah, I shaved my head. And like my mom like loves her hair, so it was just really funny in the dream because like that is not something she would generally do, at least not. No, my mom very much loves her hair, and she has beautiful hair, but it was really, she just shaved it off. And so I was trying to sit with that and see like what was trying to be shown. In some traditions, I know they say like our hair is a connection to like the spirit world or whatever, but it's now I was sitting for a moment to tap deeper in, and it's interesting. I don't know if you can hear the fly just started buzzing around me. It's really interesting. Oh, and okay, there's like so many messages coming in at once. The spider, by the way, I've talked about this in other videos where I wake up and I'll see like a spider being around in the middle of the night. And the last few nights I was seeing something else that didn't feel like the spider, but was similar. And then last night I felt like I saw the spider. So that spider energy is really coming through. I did make a video talking about, I think it was like the web of light or the web of consciousness. So there could be a message for someone in there. But Okay, so with my mom shaving her head, there was like a buzzer, you know? I always call them buzzers. I don't know what they're really called. To give like crew cuts or whatever they're called, like shaving the head. Clippers? I think they're called clippers. I don't know why I call them buzzers. Anyway, with another aspect of the dream, it's funny because for a long time I've been having this like debate about razors. Like, I like to feel smooth, but every time I use them, I just get these bumps often, and I've been having this like, what's the best? Yeah, if anyone here actually listens and is familiar with like hair removal, I used to do waxing, but right now I couldn't, that's not in my financial budget. I had like a razor that's called a single blade, you know, it's like a reusable razor where they're made of metal, I think. And that got confiscated at the airport, so I still have the blades, and I did like that, but I still got even some bumps with that. It's definitely better than the disposables. But anyway, so in the dream last night, I was shown, since I've gotten to Belgium, I have been shaving way less, and it's like really out of my comfort zone, to be honest, but I don't have another razor here, and so the one I had was like a disposable, and like it needed to be thrown away. And it's funny because I was sitting with this and I was like, wow, like I didn't realize how attached I am to razors. And I was like using this razor even though it was like hurting a little bit, and I was like, what am I doing? And so I threw the razor away yesterday. I said goodbye and thank you, and I let it go, trusting that something else will show up when it's meant to. But in the dream, it's funny, it was like, stop using razors, it's hurting you, or something like that. Now, I'm not sitting here telling anyone to stop using a razor. I think there's obviously also maybe some sort of symbolism here, because my mom, it was in the same dream where I was just shown about the razors, and then my mom used like a, clippers or buzzer to buzz her hair. So I'm actually really curious what someone would say about the spiritual meaning for a razor. Yeah, I've also tried like a really long time ago. I don't know why I'm going so into depth about hair removal, but I'm sure there's something deeper here. Maybe someone else here has been having these experiences. And I don't care if you're like a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. I've met guys who wax too. Like, we all deal with this stuff. And like part of me is like, oh yeah, it's nice to be natural and long, but I genuinely, I just love like a smoothness. So like on my legs and my underarms, whatever, any body parts. And yeah, there's just something coming in. Like, I don't know why, but like shaving has been such a big thing for me, like the last 2 years since I stopped waxing. And even waxing is, I've tried sugaring, like I've tried all kinds of things. Anyway. Oh, here we go. Spiritual meaning of a razor blade. Transformative power. Razor blades are potent symbols in spiritual contexts, often representing transformation, protection, and the ability to cut away negativity, which is really, really funny because, it says here, it's 12:11 on the clock. I don't know why I felt guided to say that. Surprisingly, yes, razor blades aren't just mundane objects found in your bathroom. They're potent symbols of what I just read, transformation, protection, and the power to make decisive changes. I love that it says that. Okay. By delving into their spiritual significance, we can uncover how these sharp tools can represent cutting away negativity and harmful influences, bringing clarity and strength into our lives. And then the beginning of this, I was talking about the diamond DNA. Actual diamonds can be significant, but yeah, there's something about that, like clarity, and definitely like listening and feeling deeper into the emotional aspects to make these decisive decisions. Because it feels like there's about to be like a plethora of options I'm hearing in different areas of life. It will be different for each of you. So really fine-tuning that discernment to see what is calling you. Oh, okay. I love how this always winds up tying together. And I know I say that if you listen to these, which by the way, if you're listening, thank you. It's so nice to know. But yeah, I often say that. Ooh, the razor blade symbolism is tied to its sharpness, which metaphorically slices through obstacles and paves the way for personal growth and spiritual clarity. Ah, this is so great. Okay. Okay, different cultures and religious traditions offer unique interpretations of the razor blade's spiritual significance. For instance, I know, now I'm hearing the Essenes are coming through, which also ties into Jewish mysticism. I guess the religious traditions is what sparked that. For instance, in some Eastern traditions, razor blades are used in cleansing rituals to signify purification and the removal of negative energies. In Western contexts, they might symbolize strength and the ability to cut through deceit or illusions. These cultural variations highlight the razor blade's multifaceted symbolic power across various spiritual practices. Transformation signifies personal growth and change. Protection represents safeguarding against negative energies. Clarity symbolizes cutting through confusion and deceit. Purification used in rituals to cleanse and purify. Decisiveness embodies the ability to make strong, clear decisions. The themes associated with razor blades underscore their importance in spiritual practices. By understanding these symbols, individuals can harness the transformative power of razor blades to navigate their spiritual journeys effectively. Now it goes on to talk about dreams. Razor blade and dreams, spiritual interpretation. Dreaming of razors or razor blades can often point to underlying issues in life that need to be resolved or smoothed over. These sharp objects symbolize the ability to make clean cuts through problems, suggesting a readiness for positive change. If you can wield the razor blade effectively in your dream, it indicates that you can tackle challenges head-on and make decisive changes in your waking life. Razor blades in dreams often bring messages about cutting away negativity and finding clarity. Okay, so yeah. There's also an aspect coming through about I was going to talk about something else, but I'm hearing upcoming travel. So maybe someone here is taking a trip soon, or it's funny because also in my dream last night, I was able to somehow access New York and California, like instantly. There was like this water, like a channel of water. It was like a little shortcut in New York where it was like no one really knew about it. And it was like this, it was like 1 block long. It was so short, but it was like this beautiful little like, oh my God, I'm going to use a word. My Italian roommate taught me an English word, which is hilarious, but sometimes it happens. Paradisiac. I was like, as soon as I heard that word, I was like, I love this word. I literally never heard that said before. Paradisiac, paradise-like is what it means. In case that wasn't, if someone isn't familiar, like I wasn't. But yeah, if you will, it was like paradisiac. There was like this 1 block and the water was like, I just keep getting the word channel. It was like a channel of water and kind of like almost very Polynesian-like. Like the water was like green and crystal clear and just really beautiful. And you could like go through this channel and then you were like in California. I don't know. So I did not sit with that one yet, but yeah, so coast can be significant, East Coast and West Coast. I've always wanted to be like bi-coastal, like living on, having like places where I live in multiple coasts. So maybe that's someone else's dream here. Maybe you already have attained that. So there could be different things. If you're not from America, maybe there's 2 different coasts that you've been thinking about visiting, but yeah, again, it's like something about logic. Like maybe it's like, oh, why would I go to this coast and all the way to that coast? But I just keep hearing just trust where you're being called, essentially. That was very specific, so that probably won't be for everyone, but I'm hearing this could be like a future thing too. Or maybe it's something you've already done, and this is just like confirmation that you made a decision that feels best for you. decisive action, inspired action, decisive action. Let's see, there's also, and it's funny because if my plan goes through, I'm not sure yet. I have a plan for next month. I will be traveling from Florida to California, like in the same day. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah, there's something here about, okay. So there's someone, in my dream last night when I was in the theater, I was getting these voice texts from someone who I feel connected to on many levels. And one of the messages, I didn't realize that he left a message. I'd listened to a couple of them, and then there was one that I didn't see, and I was busy talking to everyone around me. So, and then I went to listen to it, and there were kind of a lot of distractions, so I couldn't hear the whole message. But one of the parts that I heard was, there's a misalignment with your head and your heart. So yeah, there's something here about, I'm hearing the cleanup crew. Heart-brain coherence. And just really, it's funny because when I hear messages, sometimes I think I used to get a little frustrated. I feel like I'm doing all of these things, and then someone will be like, oh, maybe you need to work on this. And that can be extremely frustrating. And sometimes we need to be I guess triggered or see where triggers are. Absolutely. But there's also only you can validate what you already know you're doing and what you feel. So if you feel that you are someone who is, it's not about, it's funny. I'm hearing it again. There's this, it's a very common saying. It's not perfection. It's progress. When I first got to this, karma yoga service program in Belgium, that was what I kept telling myself, because it was a little bit over, everyone's been here for a while, knew what to do, and I was the only new one. And so I had to ask a lot of for direction and help, and whenever I was doing a task that felt okay, I would just say to myself over and over, it's not about perfection, it's progress. So there's something about that with this head and heart coherence. And again, I'm burping, so I'm being taken back to that form of expression and how it can feel, a little bit messy at first. And this will be, again, different for each one of you, perhaps. But it's as long as you're tuning into that heart space and really anchoring in from, and that can sound almost a little bit out of touch or whimsical. What does that mean to connect into your heart space? And sometimes if we come at it from too much of a analytical perspective, we can kind of maybe miss what is trying to be shown to us. And that's why I think the feeling center and the feeling base is really coming through. There's also an aspect, of course, when maybe if you're someone who's been really out of touch with your emotions for a long time, or certain aspects of your emotions, and then you try to tune into your heart, and you're I don't feel anything, I don't know anything. That's okay. Like I said, this is about progress, not perfection, and it can take time. And there are plenty of things you can do to start. And if you're interested in that, please feel free to comment, and I can do my best to share some of that. Maybe if I do an overflow on Patreon, I can go into some practices. Okay, let me see what else is coming through. So there's something about I'm seeing more of that connection now. In the beginning, when a lot of the self-nurturance, slowing down, retuning in, fine-tuning our auric field, the messages that we're tuning in and connecting with the Hathors, the spider energy, the feminine aspects, the Venusian influence, And then that masculine perspective of like realigning to the head and the heart, which I think is really interesting because in the dream, like it was spoken from that masculine polarity to the feminine polarity. I thought I was going somewhere with that, but I kind of lost it, so we'll see if it comes back. Okay, this fly keeps buzzing, and I heard the word nuisance. There could be something here. This would be also probably very specific, but if you feel like there's a nuisance, it's funny because I just heard someone come upstairs and open a door. Yeah, if you feel like there's like distractions or like these small nuisance energies around that just seem to be like a little bit annoying, maybe. Or yeah, distracting in some way. I really, all I'm hearing is like, it's okay. Like, that's okay. Oh, and someone just started practicing sound in the house I'm in. I hear a shruti. So, yeah, toning, playing with sound, listening to sound can be really helpful right now if you're not already doing that. But yeah, basically like, I know there can be this like overemphasis on like being positive and everything just being in alignment all the time and perfect synchronicity. And yes, we can, my life is very synchronistic and there's a lot of flow. And I guess sometimes there can be maybe a little bit of like shaming. Like if you're not like that, then you're not doing something right. But I just want to remind everyone, like even, I know there's a lot of also focus on like the idea of non-duality, which is beautiful. But we are still, when we're incarnated on earth, especially at this time, there's so much of this, collective fear and like that phoenix energy, like a lot of things like kind of starting to burn. And yeah, it's not always just, and even if you're someone who has a fairly happy, easygoing life, that's amazing. But it's like, I know for me, like when I first started out in this, and even sometimes now, like if I get a little bit annoyed by something, it's like, oh, what do I need to work on? What do I need to do? And like sometimes even that can be, yes, I love to go deep and I love emotional depth and going through the layers and the multidimensionality. That's like what I love to live for. But sometimes it's like, I realized it's okay to just let things be shown to you when it's ready and you don't always have to go digging. And that's a very specific message, like only for a few of you maybe, but and that like just because you get a little bit annoyed, like it's okay. But I also think it's part of the evolution too. Like I've gone through different phases, and maybe there was a phase where every little thing that came up, I wanted to look at it because that's the phase I was in. But there's something about recognizing that, once there's an integration process, maybe that's not as much in focus anymore. I'm not saying to never, look at these things, but yeah, like sometimes, we're humans and maybe you're a little bit dehydrated and you're a little bit more agitated, or maybe some things just annoy you and that's okay, like it's okay. I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing. Oh, I don't know. That's another thing. That's a habit. I'm sorry. And I don't know. It's been coming up so much. And I feel like I've been saying them more than usual. And it's like, I know it's people say like, oh, when you do that, you're like undermining yourself. So that could also be something that's coming up, like these little key phrases that we almost say just out of habit that could be a little bit like there's a word that I can't quite get for some reason. Self-deprecating. But I'm hearing like, look how far you've come. Like if you're someone who's listening to this, you most likely have come very far in working with yourself and the way you speak to yourself and the way you treat yourself. And if you're just starting out, just know that these things can kind of ebb and flow in cycles. And I was talking about this recently where you can like have really worked out the trigger of something. Like let's say, for example, you have a hard time, like, letting people do things for you. And your default response is to be like, no, I'm fine. I got it. Thank you. Like, no, thanks. And then you work through this for a long time, and now you receive help from people. But every once in a while, that default setting, like the factory settings on a computer, like it might come back. But you don't feel that, maybe before you would like take 25 minutes or 3 days, it would ruminate in your head. And now it's like the factory setting goes on and you're like, oh, you know what? Actually, you can help me. That would be great. Like there can be such a, like a lapse time change where, yeah, it's like just because sometimes you might say something, it's like leftover. Now, just adding awareness to that can help to completely reset that. All right, I feel like that's good for today, what I'm feeling. I honestly was not planning to record, but I just felt it coming through really strongly. So thank you. And yeah, please feel free to share anything that came up for you. And that's all.